Welcome to the first Dad's University webinar for the year 2025. I'm so excited to have all of you here with us today, and it promises to be very, very impactful. I want you to get your pen, get your popcorn, get everything you need to get so that you can enjoy this as much as possible. You see, when you call events like this, when you organize events like this, if you organize it for moms, they will show up in their numbers. A lot of them will show up. But usually, when you have organized events like this for dads, um, many people don't show up for different reasons, right? For different reasons, people don't come. But the fact that you've come today, it means that you're really taking this journey of being a good father seriously. And I'm so glad you are doing that. All right. Before we continue, I would like to get a sense of who is in the room, where you're joining from, what part of the country you're joining from. Can you just type that in the chat so that we know what part of the world, what part of the country you are all joining from? I want to see where we are joining from today. If you can just put that in the chat. Okay, I see people from Chicago, Illinois. I see people from Fargo. I see Lagos, Nigeria. You're welcome. Okay. I see someone from Mississippi, Abuja is in the house. Okay. Freetown. Wow. Freetown is in the house, is in the building. West Virginia. All right. You're welcome. Maryland, Delta State. Okay, we have people from Delta, someone from Delta State here. That's awesome. We have a good mix of people here today, and I'm so excited that you have decided to join. One more favor that I would like you to do for me is to quickly complete a poll that will be displayed on your screen shortly. If the co-host could just help me activate that poll so that people can answer the poll. Just want to get a sense of the mix, the age ranges of our children, of the people we are talking to today. If you could just answer that poll, that would be very, very helpful as we continue today. Right, it's going to be relaxed. I hope you have your popcorn as we continue today. Right, okay. About 75% of us have children between the ages of 1 and 5. 50% of us have children between the ages of 6 and 12. Okay. And the rest of us, the 2 people have teenagers. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, so a lot of us are in my shoes. So a lot of us are in my shoes, children between the ages of 1 and 5, which is great. Is the ideal time actually to be having these conversations. I mean, it's never too late, really. But this is really good. Most of us are in the same shoes. Awesome. Awesome. Let's go ahead and admit those who are in the waiting room. If you can see them, let's go ahead and admit everyone in the waiting room before we get started. We have 16 people here already, which is great. So what are we going to be sharing today? What are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be talking about some of the basic principles of parenting that fathers should know. Some of the basic principles of parenting that fathers should know. But before we continue that, maybe I should just share with you some of my motivation for having this meeting. My motivation for having this meeting. Becoming a good father is not automatic. Becoming a good father is not automatic. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to, you must be willing to invest in your job as a dad. more than you're investing in your business and in your career. Many times we invest more in our businesses and in our careers more than we invest in our jobs as dads. But that's not the way it ought to be. You ought to be willing to invest more in your job as a dad. Why is that? Because your job as a dad is the greatest job that you will ever have. It's the most important job you will ever have. Please, let's make sure we are admitting those in the waiting room. If we can, there are a few people in the waiting room. See, is the most important job that you will ever have, your job as a dad. And you will hear me say that a couple of times throughout this webinar today, that your job as a dad, because I want it to be ingrained in us, that your job as a dad is the most important job that you will ever have. I want it to be seared into our conscience or into our consciousness, that your job as a dad is the most important job you will ever have. So what are we going to be learning today? I will share my motivation for doing this webinar. I will also be sharing the 5 basic principles or the 5 foundations, if you like, of parenting that fathers should know. These are important things that if you commit to doing them, it will improve the quality of your dadship in quotes. If you commit to doing these things, it will improve the quality of your dadship. It will improve, if you commit to doing them over the next couple of weeks, and there are things you can begin to improve upon. Your stock as a father with your wife would improve. Your stock as a father to your children would improve. Your stock within the community would also dramatically improve if you commit to just paying attention to some of these foundational principles of parenting. We will also talk about the 5 mistakes that I think dads make. And if time permits, you will see in the discussion how you may be able to avoid those mistakes in your own life or in your family. So that's the basic roadmap for today. We're going to share some basic principles. Oh, somebody's joining from Lisbon, Portugal. Wow. You're welcome. Okay. So we're going to be sharing that. That's the roadmap for our discussion today. Right. We've put in the chat where we're joining from. You have answered the basic poll question. Again, oh, somebody's joining from Toronto. You are welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's talk about who this webinar is for. Who is this webinar for? This webinar is not for people who are looking for tips and tricks. I really want to be clear about that. This webinar is not for you if you are looking for tips and tricks on how to be a good dad. If you are looking for a quick fix on how to be a great dad, such a thing does not exist. It does not exist. It is a journey that is going to require dedication. It's going to require sweat equity, sometimes blood. And you must be committed to doing that. Mistakes are going to be made, but you get up and you go again. That's the commitment you're making. There's not going to be a quick fix in your journey to become. There's no relationship that you can fix quickly. No, it is. So if you're looking for a quick fix, this may not be for you. Becoming a good dad is not automatic. It's going to take time and effort. You must be willing to invest in that job more than you're investing in your career or your business. All right. So, but if you want to be inspired, you want to be empowered to embrace your destiny as a father, you want to do right by your children and your family, then this platform may be for you. Want to inspire you, want to encourage you, want to make sure that you're fired up for the year. And lastly, I want to say this webinar is for me too. This webinar is for me. There is a selfish component in wanting to create a community of godly dads, hopefully. It's because 4 years ago, when my wife gave birth to our daughter 4 years ago, and the doctor said that we could take this tiny human being home, I thought they must surely be mistaken. I mean, you are not about to let 2 clueless human beings take a baby to their house. Surely this is a mistake, right? Um, but thankfully, we made it through those early days, early sleepless nights. And as the years have gone on, as the children have grown, I've become increasingly aware of the fact that I cannot be a good dad to my children if I don't do it in the context of community. I cannot parent in isolation. I've become increasingly aware of that. That is, I need encouragement from other dads who are also on the journey. I need support. I need a hand up, you know. I need suggestions from other dads who are in the same phase of life as me if I'm going to do right by my children, if I'm going to give them the best that I can give them. That has become clear to me. That is, I cannot just, go at it and just, power through it and just, not care who is broken or what is broken. No. So that's partly my own motivation as well, to bring a community of godly dads together who want to do the best they can for their children. You see, no one can tell you how to parent your child. No one can tell you how to parent your child. Just as you can tell me how to parent my children. See, you are literally the best person in the entire world for the job of raising your children. No one has the emotional and physical assets that you bring to that job. No man would ever love your children as much as you love them. And I know you love your children. That's why you're here today, right? No one has the history that you bring to your parenting job. No one is in the spiritual and emotional position um, to understand your kids as well as you do. No one is in that position. Uh, no one is as committed to building your children and making sure they have a bright future as you are. Bottom line is, you are irreplaceable in the lives of your children. You are irreplaceable in the lives of children. I am irreplaceable in the lives of my children. To raise your children, no, nobody can do that. But it's to create a platform, a community where we can share ideas, lean on each other for support, ask questions, and then we go from there. Another caveat that I need to put on this is that I have to tell you that I'm a Christian, and being a Christ follower has a major impact on the way I see the world, right? And that will be reflected in some of the things we will share today. But even if you are not a Christian, the things we are going to talk about today, they are far-reaching, they are broad, and you'll get something out of it today. All right, I think we are ready to continue. Let me share with you briefly the mission for Dad's University, and it is to educate, to inspire, and to empower 1 million dads everywhere. One of my friends who's also on the call today, she was chatting with me earlier this morning and saying that many dads face challenges and struggles, but we never really talk about it because men are not supposed to talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about it. We're supposed to man up and power through it and do what we have to do. There are sometimes that attitude works, but other times that attitude does not work. There are things we need to learn. There are things we need to relearn. There are things we need to unlearn. The way your dad fathered you would impact the way you are fathering your children, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, dad is destiny. The way you are fathered would impact the way you are fathering your children. That is why the decision you make to take your job as a dad seriously can have generational impact. Some of you may not have had a dad in the home, whether you know it or not. That the absence of a dad in your growing up years is having an impact on your children today. Some of you had dads in the home when you were growing up. Some of you had maybe abusive dads, overly high-handed dads. Some of you had dads that were there, but that were not really there. They were not involved in any way, right? All those traits that you endured or that you passed through, and some of you had great dads too, who did everything that a dad should do. All of that has a direct impact on the way that you are fathering your children today, whether you know it or not. So for those of us that maybe had a terrible experience growing up with our dads, we need to unlearn some things. We need to unlearn some of those traits, some of those assumptions that may have clung to us, right? That may have clung to us without us knowing. Some of those beliefs that have clung to us. without us knowing. We need to unlearn that. So that's the educating part. We need to educate ourselves. Again, we need to empower ourselves. Every journey requires a tool. Like I said, your journey as a father is not a sprint, it is a marathon. Yeah, it's a marathon, and you need tools for the marathon. You need tools for the marathon. And that's where the empowerment, we want to put tools in your hands that will empower you and make you confident throughout every phase of your children's lives. And every once in a while, you're going to need inspiration. You're going to need inspiration, and we want to inspire you as well if you stay connected to us. So that's our goal, to educate you, to empower you, and to inspire you throughout the phases of life of your children. All right, let's do a quick trivia. You can just type the answer to these questions in the chat. A quick trivia before we delve into the meat of today's presentation. The man who holds the record of the most children fathered by a single person is from which country? Which country is the man from? The man who holds the record of children fathered by one man. Which country is it from? Let's see who gets it. Let's see who gets anybody. Let's see who gets it. Anybody, any guesses in the house? The man who has fathered the most children, where is it from? If I find one guess, then I will give you the answer. Niger. Okay, already said Niger. He's actually from Morocco. He's from Morocco. All right, let's do one more. Which country has a tradition of celebrating Father's Day by flying kites? Which country has a tradition of celebrating Father's Day by flying kites? This country is in Asia, I think. Going once, going twice. Going once, China. Okay. It is Thailand. Thailand is the country that celebrates Father's Day by flying kites. And finally, how do you say father in your local dialect? How do you say father in your local dialect? You can just type that in the chat as well. How do you say father in your local dialect? For me, it is Baba. So let's see if we have others from other tribes or other tribes in Nigeria. Papa, okay. You can type that in the chat. All right, let's continue. Let's continue today. I want to share with us some statistics about fathers and the absence of fathers in the home. In the United States, there are 17.6 million children. That's nearly 1 in every 4 child living without a biological dad or an adoptive dad in the house. In South Africa, that number is 65%. 65% of children live without their biological fathers in the home. And that number is significantly, when you compare with, say, Asian homes or white or Caucasian children, that number is significantly lower. For Asian homes, the number is about 14%. For Caucasian homes, that number is 20%. So you see, for Black children, at least in South Africa, that number is pretty high, 65% of children living without their biological parent. In Nigeria, 13.2% of households had 0.2% of households had children being raised without the presence of a parent in the home. And I should admit that it was really difficult for me to nail down the real data for absentee fathers in the home in Nigeria. Anyway, bottom line, this research has shown that when a child is raised in in a father-absent home, they are more likely to have behavioral problems. They are more likely to commit crimes. They are more likely to become pregnant as teenagers. They are more likely to experience substance abuse and all kinds of maladies, sexual abuse, substance abuse, alcohol abuse. They are more likely to drop out of school. And I believe that's one of the reasons you and I are here, because we don't want our children to become part of these negative statistics. So whether you are aware of it or not, there is a war going on. There's a battle against the family going on, whether you want to believe it or not. See, the foundation of the family is under threat, especially when you look at what is happening in the West. When you look at what's happening in the West, which is also creeping into Africa these days, you can see that the foundation of the home is under threat. It's under attack. I'm saying that your family is under attack. Whether you are aware of the battle going on or not, your family is under attack. See? So the question really is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get up and fight for the future of your family and your children? Or are you going to just say, "Qui sera, sera"? Whatever will be, will be. Is that going to be your attitude? Are you guys going to say, "There's nothing much I can do. Whatever will be, will be"? Or are you going to stand up and do what it takes to protect the sanctity and the sanity in your home? And this will not come cheap. It's not going to come easy. It will cost you something. But the question is, are you ready to give it whatever it takes, or are you just going to throw in the towel? See, you cannot leave the outcome of your children only to teachers and social media. Let me say that again. You cannot leave the outcome of your children to teachers in your schools and to social media. You and I have to take responsibility for the outcomes of our children. We have to take responsibility for the outcomes of our children. All right, let's talk about the 5 basic parenting principles, 5 basics of parenting that I think dads should know. 5 basic parenting principles that I think, or 5 basics of parenting that I think dads should know. The first one is communication. Communication. Communication is the first one. You have to teach your children to communicate with good words. In what we are today, the language of Gen Alpha, for example, is very different. If your children are between the ages of 6 and 13 or 14, their language is very different. So you have to teach your children to communicate with good words without bad grammar or slang and, like stuff like that. Teach them to talk and to listen to each other, to listen to others. Teach them to communicate well. That is very, very fundamental. And you cannot teach your children to communicate well if you don't communicate well. So recently I had a technician come to the house to come and fix something. And, he was going around fixing what they had to fix. And in like 5-10 minutes, he had dropped maybe like bad words twice. And somehow he got to saying that, one of his children, so I asked him about his children, their ages, and he said, the oldest is maybe 18 or something, and another one is like 12, that one is giving them problems, that the boy speaks bad words all the time. Well, he judged himself. He was like, well, I also have to control myself and stop using bad words, right? So it's an indictment on you and I if our children cannot communicate well, or if they cannot communicate how they're feeling. If they can't communicate without using bad words, that's actually an indictment on you as a dad. You also have to communicate your unconditional love to your children. This does not mean that you love all that they do unconditionally. In fact, the opposite is true. Your children's behavior, my children's behavior, is always up for review. It's always up for criticism, and always up for correction. But your child must know that you always love them as your kid, no matter what. That should be non-negotiable in your house. They should never question your love for them. And thirdly, you must communicate exactly what you expect from them in an age-appropriate manner, right? You communicate exactly what you want from them. Then you communicate how they can deliver what you expect from them. And the consequences, what happens when they do or do not deliver on those expectations. This is important. Communicating to them what you want from them What happens when they deliver on those expectations? What happens when they do not deliver on those expectations? And you must communicate as parents and not as their friends. You communicate as parents and not as their friends. Very, very important. So communication, that is critical. It's a critical basic thing for parenting. Second thing I want to talk about is involvement. Know what your child or what your children are doing. You must know what your children are doing, where they are doing it, and with whom they are doing it. And a good amount of the times, actually, you should be the one, you should be at least one of the people doing that thing with them. That's called involvement. Doing things with the children, right? Not just leaving them to the whims of a system. Knowing what they are doing, where they are doing it, with whom they are doing it. Can you name two friends of your children, no, irrespective of their ages? Do you know do you know where they live? That is involvement. And as you get involved too, you have to give them some room to be independent. You have to give them some room. Children need independence. Overly involved dads are called helicopter parents, helicopter dads. So you don't want to overcoddle your children and make them so dependent on you that they cannot attend a job interview without you sitting next to them. That's not the goal. The goal is to raise good adults, good and functional adults. That's the goal. So you are involved, but you are not overly involved. Very, very important. So we've talked about communication. We've talked about involvement. The third basic foundation of parenting is education. A dad. It is your job, it is my job to make sure that they go to school, that they're educated, but it is also your job to make sure that they get an education outside of school. See, it's also your job to make sure that they are educated outside of school, to make sure that they are infused with values so that they can live as contributing members of society. To make sure that they are infused with values, certain values that you have tried and tested, that you have borrowed from others, that you have borrowed from the Bible, that you have borrowed from ancient wisdom, values that guarantee a good life. It is your job to teach that to them. The Bible tells us, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Some parents will say, oh, well, I don't want to force my beliefs. I don't want to impose my beliefs on my children. That's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. If you don't impose your belief on your children, the world will impose its beliefs on your children. Which one would you rather have? You imposing the beliefs that you've tried and tested on your children, or allowing a third party that does not have your interest at heart, that does not have the interest of your children at heart, whose primary interest is compliance and primary interest is profit? Are they the ones you want to impose their beliefs on your children? So don't make that mistake. You train up your child. You tell them the way they should go. You instruct them in the way they should go, based on wisdom that you've gained, based on your own experiences, and based on superior experiences from yours. Based on superior experiences from your own. Very, very important. If you let others educate your children, you may not like the outcome. So you are the first teacher of your children. You are their first teacher. You have to be their first teacher. You have to be. Thirdly, the fourth rather basic principle of parenting is discipline. Discipline. Discipline is the code. I hope you're writing, by the way. I hope you're taking notes. Discipline is a code of conduct by which you live your life, by which we in this family, it's a set of guidelines that determines what is acceptable behavior in this house. And it's your responsibility as a dad to establish that, right? So these are the norms. These are the set rules and guidelines that dictate what is acceptable in this house. That is not your wife's duty. Yes, it should be done in in deliberation, in collaboration with your spouse. But if you don't take up the responsibility to do it, it will not be done. You set the pace. You determine what is acceptable. That's the job of the dad. And the first code that I would suggest is my roof, my rules. That's the first code of conduct that I would suggest to you. My roof, my rules. You see, if you allow children, even as young as 3 years old, they will bully you. They will bully you. If as young as 4, if you allow them, I have a 4-year-old. So she makes it clear she's no longer 3, she's 4. See, if you allow it, they will bully you. You have to be the one setting the pace. In many homes today, the children are the ones setting the pace, determining what is acceptable or not. Once the children can throw some tantrums, the parents lose their backbone. No. As a dad, that's the first rule. My roof, my rules. Your family is not a democracy. No, it's not. Your family is an absolute monarchy, and you are the king in your house. I'm not saying that you rob your children and your wife off the wrong way. No, I'm saying that you have the responsibility to enforce what is acceptable in your home. And if you don't do it, nobody will do it. Of course, you hear what your children have to say, especially as they grow older, right? For those who have children in that teenage children, there are things that they know that may be good input in your own decision making, right? There are things that they know that may be good input in your decision making. So you let them speak. You collect data from them, collect data from your wife, collect data from your children as they are ready to contribute. But the final decision has to be made by you, right? This is very important. This is very important. Discipline. You must not let that slip by. And yes, mistakes will be made, but you start again. You continue. You don't relinquish control of your house into the hands of your children. Don't do that. You don't relinquish control of your house into the hands of your children. If you do so, you will regret it. If you do so, you will regret it. You will not be able to, the shape of your house will become distorted if you relinquish the control of your house. All right. So you are the dad, act like it. That's discipline. You act like it. All right. The final one, which gets a lot of attention, is punishment. So we've talked about communication as one of the basic principles of parenting that fathers should know. Don't give your children silent treatment. That is, talk to them, teach them how to talk. That's what we're saying. That's communication. We've talked about communication. We've talked about discipline. We've talked about involvement. We've talked about education. And now we're talking about punishment. Punishment as a basic principle of parenting. The Bible tells us that, well, I know this in Yoruba. I don't know what this is in English. In English, is madness. It says madness is in the heart of a child. It is with the rod of correction that you take it out. It's in the heart of a child. It is with the rod of correction that you take it out. But let's talk about punishment, right? Parents who are constantly punishing their children are probably failing at the first 4 elements of parenting. If you are always punishing your children, chances are that you are failing at the first 4 elements. You are probably failing at communication. You are probably failing at involvement. You are probably failing at education. You are probably failing at discipline. If you succeed in those first 4 elements that we've talked about, chances are the number of times you would have to punish a child will be minimal. So when you do the first 4 well, there will be very little punishment required. However, sometimes you do really need to punish when they exhibit that craziness that we're talking about, that is in the heart of every child, that was once in our own heart too, right? When you exhibit that, sometimes you really have to punish. And when those times arise and you need to punish, I want to give you a few things that I think you should keep in mind as you punish a child. Number one, don't threaten. Give fair warning, then deliver the punishment. Don't threaten. Don't be constantly threatening. Just give a fair warning. Okay, if you do that again, this is the consequence. And when that is done again, then you deliver that punishment. Then you deliver that consequence. Then you punish with consistency. Punish with consistency. If it's wrong once, then it's wrong every single time. That is, don't send mixed signals to children. They are going to catch up on it. So you punish with consistency. If it's wrong once, then it's wrong every time. And remember to never punish when you are angry. When you punish with your emotions instead of logic, you might get carried away and you might do something that you might end up regretting, right? So you don't punish when you are angry. Punish with logic and don't get carried away. Then make the punishment fit the crime. Don't ground the kid for a week because they spilled milk on the counter. No, that's overreacting. That's gross overreaction. Don't go and use coal from the fire from the backyard to come and beat your child because 5 naira is missing in the house. No, don't overreact. You are once a child too, so remember mercy sometimes as you dish out punishment. Very, very important. Listen to your kid's side of the story. Sometimes you think you know, but you don't really know. You think you know, but you don't really know. So listen to them. Listen to their side of the story. They might have something to say that will change your mind. Remember that punishment is not about the person. It is about behavior. It is not about the person. It is about the behavior. So it's the behavior you are trying to correct. You're not trying to disfigure the child. You're not trying to disfigure the child. You are trying to correct the behavior. Very, very important. And then watch your mouth when you punish. Watch your mouth. Be careful what you say. You can't take back those terrible words spoken in anger. Watch your mouth. The words of your mouth, especially when directed towards your kids, have power. So you watch your mouth. And then don't apologize for delivering fair punishment. Don't apologize. Don't be sorry for delivering fair punishment. It's your job to do so, and do it. When you do all of these things, the chances are pretty good that you are going to raise strong, independent, responsible adults who will go out on their own and live productive lives. And that's exactly what you and I want. We want to raise strong, responsible, independent adults. We're not trying to raise compliant children. We're not trying to raise children that don't have a mind of their own. No, we're trying to raise children. We're trying to raise independent and responsible adults. So keep that in mind. That your goal is not compliance all the time. Sometimes when they express their unique their unique point of view, you let it slide. You see? So very important. So we've talked about communication as a basic principle of parenting. We've talked about involvement as a basic principle of parenting. Education, it's your responsibility to educate that child. Both formal education, but most importantly, informal education. It's your responsibility. Discipline is another responsibility that you have, and then punishment. And I just highlighted for us some of the things we keep in mind as we mete out punishment. All right, let us continue. I hope you all are taking some notes. You have to be allowed in the chat okay. Thank you. All right. I hope everyone who is in the chat, who is in the waiting room has been allowed in. All right. Sounds good. Now let's switch gears to talking about some of the mistakes that dads make and how we may be able to avoid them. That's one of the promises that I made to those who registered. Some of the mistakes. If you can still hear me, can you give me a thumbs up? If you can still hear me, give me a thumbs up. And if you're still here, okay. Thank you for joining, Elijah. You can see him. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, Benjamin, thank you. Right, Michael Benedict, thank you. Andrew, okay, thank you. If you can, okay. You are still here. Thank you. All right. 5 mistakes that dads make and how you can avoid them. 5 mistakes that dads make and how you and I can avoid them. The first mistake I think dads make is not having a vision for the type of family they want to raise. Not having a vision for the type of family they want to raise. I call this a noble family vision. Not having a vision for the type of family, a map of where you are trying to go. A map of where you're trying to go. What is that map? What does that look like? If you don't have that, that's a major mistake. A picture of where you and your family want to be or what you want to look like in 10, 20, 30 years' time. Having this roadmap and this vision could be the difference between getting to where you want to go to, getting to your destination safe and sound, and not getting to that destination safe and sound. See, that could be the difference. Where there is no vision, the Bible says, the people perish. Proverbs 29, verse 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. So you begin with the end in mind. What's the picture that I have for my family in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years? That is very important. You must have that. If you don't have that, that's a big mistake. The only way you set the tone and determine the direction for your house, for your family, is by this family vision. That's the way you set the tone. And you, as the leader of the home, have the responsibility to set the tone and make sure everyone in the family understands the vision and are moving in the same direction. You, dad, as the leader of the home, have the responsibility to set the tone, make sure everyone is on board, and make sure that everybody is moving in that direction. So that's my first challenge to you today. What is your noble family vision? Are you trying to raise a family of doctors? You see? Are you trying to raise a family of doctors? Are you trying to raise a family of engineers? Are you trying to raise a family of priests? Are you trying to raise a family of entrepreneurs? That is, don't leave it to chance. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And it is not enough to have this vision in mind, but you never shared it with your wife. You never shared it with your children. Welcome to the club. But it's not enough. Most of us dads are so busy. We are so busy providing for the family. We are busy putting out fires. We're busy taking care of daily challenges and all the like, that we never really find time. We've not taken the time to think about what we want our family to look like in the future. This is very, very important. And that's a problem. If you've not taken the time to think about what you want your family to look like in the future, that is a big problem. Because nothing of significance is ever built by accident. Nothing of significance is never built. I mean, think about it. Which great company just happened by accident? Which great athlete became a champion by accident? No. But nothing of value, nothing that brings value to others and to the society is ever built that keeps you going through thick and thin. It is this noble family vision that keeps you going. And no matter where you are, no matter what mistakes that you have made in the past, I want to give you here at this point, and again, I hope you're writing. I want to give, because this will be useful for you. I hope a noble family vision. Questions that if you begin to answer these questions in the context of where you want to be in the next 5 years or where you want to be in the next 10 years, it will begin to create clarity for you about the type of that you should have. I didn't put this on my slides, but I will just read them out to you. Relationship do you want to have with your wife in the next 5 years or in the next 7 years? What kind of relationship do you want to have with your wife? And we're still going to talk about that, because there are some dads that think that they can be a good dad without being a good wife, without being a good husband. That's number 2 mistake, actually. Thinking that you can be a good dad without being a good husband first is a big mistake. But anyway, the first question that can help you begin to crystallize what your noble family vision ought to look like is asking yourself, what kind of relationship do I want to have with my wife in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? How do you want to interact or relate with your wife? What do you want your marriage to look like? See, what do you hope she will say about you as a man? What do you hope she will say about you as a husband? What do you hope she will say about you as a father? Those are the questions. Number 2 question that you should ask is, what kind of parent do you and your wife want to be? What do you want your children, especially when they are grown? What do you want them to remember about your family and life together when they were with you in your house? How would you like them to characterize their childhood? Would you like to say that I had a turbulent childhood, or I had a turbulent childhood, or I had a very scary childhood? No, I'm sure you don't want that. So, what kind of parent do you want to be, and what kind of things do you want your children to say about you, especially when they're no longer in the house? Number 3 question that you should ask in building this noble family vision: adults, what do you want your children to be like when they are adults? What do you want them to be known for? What do you want them to be known as? See, that's what I was telling you. Do you want to build a family of entrepreneurs? Do you want to build a family of priests? Do you want to build a family of doctors? Do you want to build a family of lawyers? Do you want to build a family of, you have to define it. You have to define it. And that definition gives the life of your children a definition too. And it impacts how you build them up, how you train them, where you take them to, the kind of exposure you give them. Very important. Your children to relate to their spouses and children. What kind of husband, wife, mom, and dad do you want your children to be? See, you can define that. You can define that. And to interact with each other in the future. Do you want children that cannot stand each other in the future because of the way you parented them? You see, you and I know people who cannot stand each other and they're. How do you want your children to relate and to interact with each other in the future? How do you want each of them to relate with each other's spouses and each other's family? Perhaps the greatest blessing a parent can have is for their children when they are adults and they don't have any, they are not under any compulsion to choose each other. They continue to choose each other, or they continue to spend time with each other, and they continue to spend time with their parents. That's perhaps the greatest approver, and old and making their own decisions, have their own family. They somehow still continue to choose each other. They still continue to choose us as their parents when you cannot force them to do so anymore. So you define that. You define that. How do you want them to interact with each other? How do you want your children to interact with you and your wife in the future? How do you want them to interact with you and your wife in the future? What kind of relationship do you hope to have with them? Then what are the core values that should bind your family together? I believe loving God is important in life. You write that. That has to be part of your family vision. Do you believe serving the community is important as a person? Then you write that down. That's important to you. That's a value that you hold strong. Do you believe respect is important? Then you write that down. That is a value that should bind us together as a family. Do you believe generosity is important? Right? That's a core value that you think should bind you together as a family. See? Very, very important. Now, I know I've really thrown a lot at you. Chances are that it may never be done. Chances are that it may never be done. It reminds me of the story of a king. You see, this king, the children of Israel, as you know, are not supposed to be friends with Gentile nations, right? So the king, like the king of Babylon. But when the king of Babylon came to Israel, King Hezekiah, guess what he did? He showed in Israel. He took them to the temple, showed them all the gold, all the silver, or everything that they had in the kingdom of Israel, the beauty of the nation. He showed their enemy what they had. Of course, as you can, because of what you did, he's going to allow this king of Babylon to come and invade the nation of Israel and cut away all these things that you showed them. You would imagine that God said, guess what he said? He said, that's okay. God has said what is right when I'm here. As long as it only happens when I'm dead and gone. That's what he did. He didn't mind that the disaster was going to come on his children. He said, I'm not going to be here when that disaster comes anyway. I don't want you to have that attitude. I want you to do the work. I don't want you to leave disaster in your wake because you did not do the work to define a family vision. You see, I don't want you to define a noble family vision because you refuse to do the work that is needed, that I think people make, dads make, not setting a noble family vision. And setting a noble family vision begins, a truthful evaluation of where you are as a dad right now. Many people cannot do this. Many people cannot do this. We're all tied up in our emotions and all that. You sit down and you think carefully and honest, devoid of sentiments. I think there's another poll actually. If you could make that poll live so that people can also vote. Yes. How would you rate yourself as a dad today? Honestly, how would you rate yourself as a dad? That's where it starts from. You want to build a noble family vision. Where do I stand? And here, one is, let me tell you before, maybe you want to change your mind. One is least, and 10 is like, I'm the best dad ever. I'm the best dad since sliced bread. That's 10. So how do you rate yourself as a dad today? You see, how do you rate yourself as a dad today? It's not, we listen, we don't judge. So feel free to vote. It's not, this is not supposed to be judgmental. We're all here to get better. So you see, most of us kind of are falling in that middle range, in that mid range, 4 to 5. And sometimes it's just a little bit more of paying more attention that will get you to 7 to 9 or to even 10, right? Just paying more attention and not just going with the flow. Just paying a little more attention and doing some things deliberately can really push you ahead and really become the best that you can be. So you interrogate yourself, what are the implicit or explicit assumptions that I've carried into my journey as a father? What are the assumptions that I took from my childhood that I'm now bringing into my fatherhood journey? Have they served me well? And if I continue this way, will I be the best that I can be for my children? Very, very important question. There is a lot more we can say about having a noble family vision. There is a lot more we can say, right? Even after you've answered those questions, how do you put them together? How do you connect them together into a coherent whole that makes sense to you and that makes sense to your children, depending on the ages of your children, right? The way you're going to set a vision for an 18 plus year old child is probably different from the way you're going to set a vision for a 1 to 5 year old child, right? So there's a lot more technical things we can talk about there. Now, who are the key players that you must bring on board so that you can achieve this vision? Visions are meant to be achieved. If you don't think visions are meant to be achieved, then why are you setting a vision? Right? Visions are supposed to be achieved. So who are the people that you need to bring together to achieve this vision? You know, how do you ingrain into the hearts and minds of the members of your family this vision that you've come up with? So there's a lot more we can talk about there. But if you want to work with me so that I can help you craft your own unique family vision, work with you step by step, you can reach out to me. You can send an email to readysetdads@gmail.com. readysetdads@gmail.com. Or you can, some of the links that we will share at the end of this webinar also has a place where you can book a session with me as well. All right, let's continue. So we've talked about the first mistake, not having a family vision. The second mistake that I think dads make is thinking that they can be good dads without being good husbands. Thinking that they can be good dads, that's a big mistake. Because you and I, we need our wives to be a good dad. You need your wife to be a good dad. You cannot succeed in your attempt at being a good dad. That doesn't work. No, you need your wife. Treat your wife like a servant. You keep running her down, depriving her of a say in the house, and think you can be a good dad. No, break the unit of the family down, the unit of society down into its into the least when it comes to children. Yes, the family is the basic unit of the society, but in that basic unit, the primary unit is the husband and the wife. So the first way we know that you are really serious about becoming a better dad, as many of us said in our registration, that's awesome. But the first way we know you are really serious about that is you doing the work of becoming a good husband first. The first relationship your children get to observe is the relationship between you and your wife. That's the first relationship. What if my wife is not a good wife? Well, that's on you. That's an indictment on you. And that is not an excuse for not being a good husband. You decide to be a good husband regardless, you see? And that decision would have a tremendous impact on your children. Even if your wife is not in the home, it's not impossible that of the world, right? It's not impossible that we have maybe people that are single dads for whatever, for a myriad of reasons, right? But if your spouse is still around, even if not in the home, you have to treat them well. You have to treat them kind, you are compassionate, you are patient. You don't do tit for tat. It is when you do this that your words carry weight with your children. If you don't do this, your words will not carry weight with your children. Your words will not carry weight with them. If you are treating your primary relationship shabbily, your words will not mean much to them. They may not tell you, but it will not mean much to them. Thinking is dangerous. That thinking is thinking that you can be a good dad without being a good husband. Your first responsibility is actually to be a good husband. Because one of the greatest sources of anxiety is marriage, and they can sense it even at a very young age. If a child senses that mommy and daddy are not connected, it seems to them like their entire world is very differently than the way you perceive tension in the house. Say, for example, you have a disagreement with your wife, and it is your habit to slam the door, and that's your alone time by slamming the door. That's your own way of saying that. Well, that may communicate to your wife that you need it. Is that daddy does not want me and mommy around. That's the way they read that. But they may not be able to articulate that to you, right? They may not be able to articulate that it's not connected. And to them, it's like their word is coming. Be a good husband is that there is this accountability structure into marriage to reap the help that she's supposed to be. You have many blind spots. You and I, as men, we have supposed to be called spots. It's a huge blind spot. And it is your oversee that your wife sees, even if they gave you 10 years to stare at that situation, it's critical for your children. It's critical for the type of family you are building, and it's critical for your own future as well. You miss out on all of those accountability structures and the help that she can bring. That's if you constantly minimize your wife, we will say. If you're constantly treating your wife poorly, we will make your wife a priority, and that will automatically create a home, an out safe, and they feel secure. Very, very important. Very, very important. I think that's make and can have long-lasting impact on their children is not evolving with the needs of their children. Not evolving. See, the needs of your children will evolve over time. Just like you. Your own needs too have not been stagnant, right? Your needs have evolved over time. There was a time when it's changed, but as they grow, they want you to take them to the park and to take them to parties, right? And to them, that's all that matters. Just take us to the park. That is the most important. If you don't take them to the park, you take them to the park. They cry, when you don't take them to the park. But again, as they grow and they begin to navigate the world, they expect you to help them to make it. They suffer heartbreaks, and some of their expectations are not met. And people treat them shabbily. And in their attempt to, catch feeling for boys, catch feeling for girls, now they want you to help them understand the world. They want you to be a shoulder to cry on. When somebody does not reciprocate their love, but you are stuck in the time when they were asking you to take them to the park. You've not evolved. You've not changed. You are not adaptive to that. They are no longer asking you to take them to the park. You think your job as a dad is over. Oh, well, she's spending all the time in her room now. So that means I can go and play games in the basement. You see, that's wrong. That's a mistake. Because your child is not asking you to take them to the park or asking to hang out with you does not mean your job as a dad is over. You have to evolve and now begin to ask yourself, okay, so how then do I get involved with this child? How can I be present for this child? Even though she prefers now to spend most of her time in her room, or these days he just wants to hang out with his friends. How do I retool myself to still be relevant to this child? Your job as a dad is not over. Let me share with us 4 stages of parenting and how that you should have as your children mature. 4 stages of parenting, and now that can serve as a roadmap relationship with your children when they are all grown. And I'm borrowing this from a book on parenting by Andy Stanley. 0 to 5 years old, they call it the discipline years. And if you ask many, psychologists, they will tell you that the behavior that you don't correct or arrest at this age bracket, it may be difficult to arrest it later on. See, so this is the discipline years. This is when you really have to drum into them that actions have consequences and be consistent in your discipline and in punishment. Proverbs 19 verse 18, discipline your son while there is still hope and do not desire his death. Discipline your son, discipline your daughter while there is still hope, because the time is coming when your discipline is not going to work anymore. When your discipline is not going to make sense anymore. 0 to 5 is the discipline years. 5 to 12 is the training years. This is when you are training them. You are showing them how to do certain things. You are going to the park with them. You are doing all sorts of things with them. 12 to 18 years, this is the coaching years. You are coaching, you let them have an opinion Sometimes, 12 to 18, those are the coaching years. So you are coaching your children in those times, preparing them for adulthood. And 18 plus, that's the friendship years, 18 plus and above. At that stage, you really want to build a friendship rhythm with your children. You want to build a friendship rhythm with your children. That is, you share with them, they share with you. They are free. There is a freedom in there. And if you do the discipline well, you do the training well, you do the coaching well, you would enjoy the friendship years. That's 18 plus till when they are 50 and when they are much older. You enjoy those friendship years if you do the discipline well. The tools you need in the discipline years are very different from the tools you need in the training years. The tools you need during the training years are quite different from the tools and the attitude and the disposition that you need to have in the coaching years. And the same for the friendship years. So you evolve as their needs evolve. You evolve. You are not lackadaisical. You are not sitting on your horse and saying, my wife, she has got it. No, you evolve to be involved in your children's lives as their needs also evolve. I won't spend a lot of time in this. We could take a lot of some dads make is that they think that they're becoming a better dad is very different from their becoming a quality person. Work as becoming a quality person impacts the quality of the fatherhood you provide in your family. See, being a good dad is very important, but you must be a good person first before you can be a good dad. You must be a quality human being first before you can be a good dad. See, you must take your personal development seriously before you can be a good dad, which I'm so glad many of us are joining this. That is the first step, being a quality human being, elevating your own consciousness, elevating your own spirit, elevating your own mind. That is what you bring to your job as a dad. Do you have personal goals, for example? How many books are you going to read this year, right? Or are you just one of those people that say that the last time I read was when I was in school or when I was in college? That was the last time I read a book. No, you can't become a quality person that way. So becoming a quality person to the last mistake that I think dads make, and it's not spending quality time to know their children. And there's this myth of I don't have time, daddy does not have time. And so, the 5 minutes that I get to spend with my children every week, I'm going to make it quality time. That's a myth. The way you get quality time is by quantity time. Let me say that again. The way you get quality time is by spending quantity time with them. You don't claim that you are spending quality time. I remember there was a time ago, I was just watching this dad, it was in the summer, watching this dad take out his daughter to the park. And all the while the girl was in the park playing, the man was on his phone. Was in the park there, was just on his phone. Maybe was playing a game or just texting, was on his phone. No. You can't say you are spending quality time that way. The way you get quality time is by spending a long claim to be on your phone and you're saying you're spending quality time. What you are communicating by doing that is that what is on the phone is more important to you than the children. And the children can pick up on all those, find the time. Even if it means working fewer hours at work, finding quality time or quantity time to spend with your children. Very important. You're telling you that your girl child is telling you that she wants to be a boy now, or your boy is telling you that he wants to be a cow. We've seen that. You see, because you don't know what 25, your success as a dad is not determined by how much money you make or how much money you spend on your children. So you're able to take your family on. No. Or how well you're able to spoil your children. Your success as a dad is measured in units of connection. Spell love. That's how they spell love. Time, time spent together. That's how children spell love. So it's very crucial. Spending quality time with your children. Right? We've talked about not having a noble family vision as a big mistake. We've talked about thinking that you can be a good dad without being a good husband as a big mistake. Not evolving with the needs of your children, another mistake. Not becoming a quality human being, a big mistake. And not spending enough time to know your children, a big mistake. All right. I think we can take one or two questions before we do the dad declarations and make some announcements at the end. So if somebody has a question or two, you can type it in the chat and we'll see if we can answer the question here. Right. Any questions, please? Okay. Any questions? If you raise your hand, you can come off mute or something. Okay. All right. Actually, a man can be a good husband, but not a good dad. Yes. Likewise, some men are actually good dads, but terrible husbands. How do we reconcile the chasm? Well, I guess the point I'm making here is that your journey to becoming a good dad starts with your primary relationship with your wife. And so that connection with your wife is very important if you're going to be a good dad, because that's what your children observe first. So being a good dad is not like, oh, I spend a lot of money on my children. No, it's about, okay, what are the values and the that you are giving them to take into the future for their own lives, and they only observe that primarily between you and your wife. At least that's the way it should be. How do you balance your children's interest with what you want for them? Very good question. How do you balance your children's interest with what you want for them? Wow, another question. How does this framework adapt to a divorced couple? Brilliant questions. Let's start with, how do you balance your children's interest with what you want for them? Okay, so it depends on the age that I think these children are in. When they are between that 0 to 5, your interest for them is to keep them safe, right? You're trying to keep them safe. You're trying to make sure that they don't hurt themselves, they don't hurt others. As they become older and they begin to share strong interest, it depends on it around which topics too. So if their interest is to say they want to go for a sleepover, for example, and you know that there are many risks associated with going for a sleepover in a place that a couple that you don't know, you can't vouch for them, you don't know how many kids will be at this sleepover, but it's your child's interest to go for this sleepover. Well, in the interest of their own safety, you put your leg down and you say no, right? So if it's interest, like they're much older, they're trying to decide the course they want to study in school, for example, they're going to college and they're trying to decide, oh, I want to study painting. An African child in the United States that wants to study painting or anthropology. That's what I want to study in college. And you are like, child, I'm not sure that's a good way to go. I think you should choose other practical subjects, other subjects that would make sure that you have food on your table in the future. You have to have that conversation with them and hopefully steer them in that direction. The most important thing is over time, you should have built some trust with them. You should have let them make mistakes with less consequential decisions or less consequential interest. I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying. So maybe a child expresses interest in something that you know is not good for them, but it will not destroy them, right? It will not totally destroy them, but it might bring some discomfort to them. Over time, you want the child, but you let them do what they want to do, and they will come back to you to comfort them when they begin to experience the consequences. So over time, you will have had those experiences, and they should, by the time they are making those big decisions that are consequential to their future, consequential in their relationships, that they are able to trust you more. They're able to trust you more. And one way you can do that also is to tell the child that, okay, if we do it this way and you don't like it, can you promise me that next time you will listen to me? Or just trust me and let me guide you in this very important decision. But it starts with building trust with them over time. So that's my answer to that. How do you balance the child's interest with what you want for them? How does this framework work or how do you adapt this for divorced couples? Well, it depends. I think each situation too will be unique. If it's a divorced couple that you're still co-parenting and all of that, you still have the responsibility to treat your wife well. You still have the responsibility to be kind. You still have the responsibility to be compassionate. If you have another, maybe a stepmom in the home, then you have to seek their support and their support in your journey of becoming a good dad for your children and for the children you have together and the children you've had before this woman. So that's very important. Thank you for those questions. Thank you for those questions. Okay, let's move on to this dashing. You don't have to unmute yourself, and if you don't have to unmute yourself, but you can read along with me. This is something that if you commit to saying this over time, that's the way I think about this. It would lead to you becoming a better dad. You'll be conscious of some of the things that are in these dad declarations. Okay, another question says, discipline and training years, are there overlaps, especially if they didn't really understand why I disciplined them when they were younger than 5? Discipline and training years, is there an overlap? Yes, I would imagine there is an overlap there. Again, the uniqueness of your children, you can just sense it, you can taste it. Okay, this child needs more discipline. Okay, I need to switch into training for this child. There can be overlap, and you have to also keep in mind the uniqueness of your child and the uniqueness of that situation. All right, let's look at the dad's declaration. It's not yet on your screen, but it should be in a minute. Okay, like I told you, I'm a Christ follower, so this is a Sam declaration. Jesus is first in my life. I exist to serve and glorify him. I love my spouse and would lay down my life to serve her. My children will love and serve God with their whole hearts. I think I see it has moved away from your screen. Let me put it back. Okay, there you go. My children will love and serve God with their whole hearts. I will nurture, equip, train, and empower them to do more for God and their community more than they can imagine. I love people and believe the best of others. I am disciplined, physically and mentally tough. Christ in me is stronger than the wrong desires in me. I am growing closer to Jesus every day. Because of Christ, my family is closer, my body is stronger, my faith is deeper, my leadership is sharper. I am empowered my family and be the best dad I can be. I am creative, I am innovative, I am driven, I am focused, I'm blessed beyond measure because the Holy Spirit dwells within me. It's getting out of your screen again. Okay, is that happening? I develop leaders, male and female. I develop boys and girls into responsible adults. It's not just something I do, it is who I am. I wake up with purpose, direction, and meaning every day of my life. I bring my best and then some. It's what I bring after I bring my best that makes all the difference. I am called to make a difference in my family. The world will be different because of how I lead my family. And finally, I have the mind of Christ. I have the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwelling inside of me, and that makes me powerful for the kingdom of God. So that's the dad declaration for you. Few announcements. We are looking for volunteers for Dad's University, strategic thinkers, social media content creators. So if you want to volunteer to do some of these things, please send an email to readysetdads@gmail.com, and we would be happy to talk to you. And finally, these are some of the resources that will be pasted in the chat by my co-host. Paste some of these links in the chat so that people can have it. A family values template. It's going to be free. I'm not sure I've put the price at 0 yet, but in the next 24 hours, if you go to some of these links, you'll be able to download the family values template for your family, something that you can walk through or adapt for your own family. I also want to encourage you to sign up for Dad's University newsletter. That's where you're going to stay engaged and connect with other dads like you. So sign up for our Dad's University newsletter. You can also download a free sample of my book at that email. You can download a free sample of my book at that email, at that link as well on seller.co. And also, if you want a copy of the Dad's Declaration, send an email to readysetdads@gmail.com. If you want a sample of the Dad's Declaration formatted for you, send an email to readysetdads@gmail.com. Again, what you're going to get, the family values templates that you can adapt for your family, sign up for the free newsletter, and get a free sample of my book on using those links. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. Really enjoyed hanging out with you all, and I hope to stay connected to you and to speak to you very soon. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.